Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Dr. Thomason, roll call, please.
President Kaler, members of the board, please let the record show that we have all 5 board members here tonight.
Thank you so much. We are going to have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I move that we approve the agenda. Second. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Thomason, Superintendent's report.
President Kaler, members of the board, at this time I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Foley, who will update us on upcoming events.
Good evening, President Kaler, members of the board. Our upcoming events are presented to you this evening. As you will see, we have several upcoming governing board meetings and the dates that support that, as well as the Labor Day holiday as well.
Thank you so much. Now we are going to go on to some board comments. Mr. Witovich, you want to go? Oh, Mrs. Wilson, go ahead. Mrs. Wilson, ladies first.
I just want to thank everyone for all the emails. I have not been responding, but we have gotten a few more emails, probably around 40 or 50. I looked this afternoon. I haven't been responding, but I just want to say thank you for reaching out. I understand your concern, and I appreciate you guys taking that time. So thank you.
Mr. Glover, anything tonight? Okay, Mr. Witovich, you're up.
Okay, I'd just like to say a lot of things. First of all, I'm going to start with my negative, and then I'll end it with the positive that we're on a good note here this evening. I served in Michigan for 12 years on a school board and also in Higley for 6. I chose to live in the Higley Unified School District because of the great schools and the community. I do not make decisions lightly, and I always will be in the best interest of our children. As I served for all those years on the school district, I have watched the different communities' responses coming together during 9/11, such things like that. The Gulf War, when the students all stopped what they were doing and we all sang God Bless America, those type of things. Nothing has prepared me for what I have been experiencing as a board member in this community. I have noticed a change in this community. I have noticed, you would not believe, all of you who are watching out here, you will have not a clue as to the cruel, hateful emails that I received because I voted for online learning. You know, as somebody says, well, you know, you're saying cruel and things like that. Let me clue you in what is happening in this community right now. A media teacher yesterday, a family was pulling up to a school. The teacher heard that that family was not going to be attending that school. So the teacher went outside to wish the family best of luck, those type of things. As the teacher was approaching the car, the mother says to her, "Who are you and why are you coming near me?" And she says, "Well, I've been with your children and reading to them." She says, "They don't know who you are." And the teacher says to them, "Yes, they do. I read to them every week." And she says, "I just came to say goodbye to them and I wish them well. We have nothing further to say and I don't care what you're going to say." And she drives off. What type of rude behavior is that? As those children are looking out the window, watching as their teacher is standing there with that mother saying those type of things. Just in our community, one of my neighbors is a waitress, high school. She goes to serve the family. They had a big bill. She gets a 5-cent tip. The family says to her, "Next time, if you serve me without a mask, I'll give you some money." You know, it just goes on here and on. I just can't tell you what's taking place. At times, I was trying to even examples of my own here, okay? There were some emails that I've gotten, and, I try to be nice and I try to respond to them, but you should see and hear the responses that I get in reference to that. When I get such thing where they answer their statement, it says, the rewards far exceed the risks that take place. And I think, oh my gosh, you are telling me that your reward for going to school and a risk to another child is worth it. Well, not to even one child, it's not worth it. And I thought of that story about that starfish, how they say what things matter worth is that one starfish. And I thought about that starfish in reference to those type of things. So those are the different things. In fact, probably the thing that just the reason I'm even saying this today and having this conversation with this community that needs to understand what's taking place here is I just told this one person wrote me and I said, I'm trying to do the best decision I can make with the information that I have. And I told him, I said, one of my sons got the virus, death's door, intensive care, crying. We thought he was going to die. He thought he was going to die. Still has, complications. And this was a healthy, athletic, young person, okay? I told him, I said, perhaps my input's a little bit different. Know what that response was? I don't care about your son. I want the schools open. I said, oh my gosh. Where has this community gone? I mean, I'm just sharing this to you because I want you to understand the cruelty in this community to what has taken place. And we don't have I didn't ask for this job to open up the schools with a pandemic. None of us did up here. We don't have a clue how to get through this, but we're trying to do the best that we can. And we need to get through these type of things here. And we need to show each other compassion. We need to work through this as a caring and compassionate adults. Just think what great role models we would be if we actually showed some kindness to each other. Let me just say, enough with the negative behavior. I believe what we have more good in this community. With that, I want to read to you one of the emails that I've got here, okay? This is from a parent I got the other day, and after I read the one that says doesn't give a rip about my child and me, myself, and I, those type of things, it was really like, wow, where am I going to go? Where am I living at right now, okay? And let me just read to you a note just from a parent. It says, how thankful I am that the HUSD has decided that we at least have a plan. I would not consider myself in the middle. I don't want to go back full force at this time, but I am hoping we can get our kids back someday in school at some point when it's safe. I want to reach out to you board members who voted for our kids, for our families, for our teachers, for the safety of all children. This vote is the most kind, loving, empathetic act that you have done, that you could have done for your community at this time. A huge weight of worry and anxiety has been lifted off to this mom and so many, many others in this community. When you made that vote to delay in person, I know some of you probably are getting beat up for that decision. You can't make everybody happy, but I actually cried when that decision was made. Believe it or not, my kids were happy. Now, they've got online classes every day, but they are smart. They know what is going on in the world. They see all the schools having to close again and again just in a few days. They want to be safe. That just gives you an example of some of the things that we have taking place for us in that. It's just about showing compassion. The governor can make the change, people. He pushes it to the community instead of making an executive decision. A good political move here, let the locals make the decision with the least amount of knowledge here, okay? Let them be the common denominator who's going to take the abuse while I sit back and watch the fighting amongst the children. Look it up. The Maryland Governor, Hogan, made a directive and changed the opening dates so some schools could come back. Why can't that take place? So don't ask us people Ask the governor. He can make the change if he wants to. He's more happy watching the people fight here amongst ourselves, neighbor to neighbor, cruelty, things like that. Let us fight amongst ourselves instead of looking over our shoulder and saying, hey, look at the guy up on the porch. He can make the decision, but he's letting the two children fight each other on the playground. As I said earlier, we all need to show respect and kindness towards each other, as this cruelty will do nothing but destroy this community. I have one other thing I want to share with you as well on this one here. I think it was important. I was kind of looking around the country and seeing like, how are other people communicating and how are they getting, how are the schools and trustees talking to other people and how are they getting their communities to come together? I'm going to read to you. I found this, it's just really nice what this community did. And I'm going to read to you what's on their homepage for their school. And it's just really, really nice. Okay? It says, last spring, the school named 3 priorities that would guide our planning for the 2021 school year: health, safety, learning, and community. For months, our leadership team and faculty have worked tirelessly, devoting the full resources of St. Andrews to be ready to deliver exceptional education for each student in the midst of an ongoing pandemic. Given the ongoing shared risk that COVID-19 possesses to our school community and the larger society, our reopening plans must be grounded first and foremost in the health and safety of our children. We must acknowledge that local infection rates have risen and have remained elevated in recent months, that there is not yet sufficient access to rapid COVID testing results, sounds familiar, and that experts have therefore advised us that the virus continues to possess significant risk if we resume in-person instruction too quickly. We have the duty and determination to care for everyone in our school. Each St. Andrews student and family, and every teacher and staff member who has dedicated their life to our school, our community members come to our campus from across the greater Washington area, and with each return home to our families and loved ones every evening. In this time, more than ever, we must care for the health and well-being of every student on our campus. We belong and must be responsible to each other. For these reasons, our Board of Trustees and I have dedicated that St. Andrews will begin the year in our distant learning model for kindergarten through grade 12 through at least October 9th. Remember this, October 9th, people, okay? Our medical staff and advisors will continue to monitor local health conditions and guidance and will inform families by the beginning of October whether we believe it is safe to begin phasing in on-campus instruction via our hybrid model. Ladies and gentlemen, this is St. Andrews Elementary School outside of Washington, D.C. This is the school where President Trump's son attends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Any other
No,
comments?
well, I didn't,
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Witovich.
I didn't say
I was
anything.
looking at Mr. Glover. Thank you, Mr. Glover.
Well, I wasn't going to say much, but I'm struck by, I thank you for your passion, Mr. Witovich, and your many, many years of service. You know, we did get some emails that some people were like, you guys shouldn't get a paycheck. I was like, okay, well, we don't. So, you know, I wish we could all just start from a place where we accept that we all want your kids, our kids, to grow up healthy, productive citizens. And I'm going to say that again. I wish we could all start from a place where we could at least accept that we all want our kids and your kids to grow up to be healthy, productive citizens. If you start from there, then you might be able to find some common ground. You know, I feel like our time and energy might be better spent educating others on the things that will help get us back where we want to be more quickly. We should do those things, and we should encourage other people to do those things, and science tells us what those things are. You know, there's the metrics that the governor and DHS put in place. So in case people were confused about the decision we made, you know, the challenge is for us to meet those. The sooner we meet them, we were prepared as of last week to say, in a week, we can go back. So the challenge really to the community is do the things that will help slow and decrease those numbers to where we all feel comfortably safe so that your kids can grow up and you know, dance at their weddings and, you know, give you grandchildren and all those things. So anyway, that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Anything else? All right, we're going to go on to our request to speak. Dr. Thomason is going to be our reader again tonight. He's got his water ready, and I am going to read this first. We value input from our constituents. This time has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Please remember, this is not an appropriate venue to evaluate, discuss, or criticize district personnel. Policy KEB provides a process for complaints about personnel. Speakers should be aware that the false statements about individuals may result in civil liability. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431-01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes, although we will not be doing that part. But thank you, Dr. Thomason.
Thank you, Madam President. Once again, I'll be reading them directly as written as we received them. The first one is from Dana Griggs, with children at Higley, Sossaman, and Santan. We want 5 days of in-person school. We want to be listened to. The survey said 90% wanted in-person school, including the teachers. What was the point of the survey if you aren't going to listen? Open the schools. Next, from Ms. Jennifer Larson. Children at Williamsfield, Cooley, and Chaparral. I have concerns over school closures. Next, from Lisa Drake, with children at Higley Traditional Academy. I have been an HUSD parent for over a decade. I am so disappointed in how the board has completely turned their back on this community. You were elected to this position to speak for your constituents, but yet you have completely disregarded the majority. You have made the decision based off this over-exaggerated fear that the teachers are going to be in the classroom with 25 COVID-plus kids. I will continue to speak up on behalf of my children and every other child in this district. Please get the kids back on campus. Another 8 weeks without these experiences and interactions are only going to deflate any desire for education that these young minds are typically so eager for. Next, from Rebecca Shiver, children at Cortina, Sossaman, and Higley. Last meeting, the vote showed that you are not here for children. You do not listen to children. You do not represent children. But shouldn't children be your number one priority? All children, please put your personal experiences, your opinions, and your fear aside to let children have a choice. Everything has been taken from them. And only 10% of children wanting the online program. Please don't ignore and neglect the 80% of children that need in-person school. Thank you. Next, from Carrie Ware, children at Higley High, Sossaman, and Centennial. I would like to address how all the survey were completely ignored. Also, I would like to express how my family is personally being affected. From Christina Klontz, children at Cortina and Higley. Extremely disappointed in the vote against returning to school in person. Please tell me why you even bothered to survey that were in favor of returning to campus in person. Or were you elected to further push your own agendas with your own personal opinions? Yes, we all saw the email that was sent to a parent from Mr. K about his son contracting COVID and how he was basing his decision off of that. Ridiculous. This is not what you were elected to do. I am baffled that teachers at this point are the only profession refusing to go back to work. Everyone else has been back to work for months, working with high-risk people. No profession is dropping like flies. Jump off the political bandwagon and do something for these kids. How about you honor your original plan of offering choices? Let the parents and teachers who want to return go back. Let the online people stay online. If you are following the data, you would see the drastic decline of cases. You would see the age group of our children that contract the spread COVID is minuscule, and the deaths are at 0%. I mean, are you even actually looking at the websites? The CDC has said our children need to be back at school. You can't cherry pick their recommendations to fit your very biased opinions and agenda. We see you and what you are really about, and it is not the children. I urge you to reconsider your positions. Next, from Connie Webb, children at Santan Elementary. My husband has been working as a pediatric medical care provider for the past 12 years. He has worked with the underserved community for all 12 of those years. We have 5 sons. 4 of our sons are hearing impaired. 3 of our sons are ADHD, and 1 of our sons is autistic. They range in age from 14 to 3 years and are in high school, middle school, elementary school, and special needs preschool. We deal with compromised children. We do not fear COVID, and this is why. My son has caught the common cold and been intubated in the ICU for 7 days, hanging on to life, but he recovered. I have spent more nights in the hospital with my children struggling to breathe than I can count. That being said, in our family, we live life like there is always a dangerous virus out there. We have to be diligent about hand washing in an effort to keep our children out of the hospital. I can tell you from experience that it can work. Do my children still get sick? Yes. But when they do, we deal with the problem at hand. We would never limit their opportunity to learn and social growth by not sending them to school because there's a chance they could get sick and end up in the hospital. It is not fair to our children to deprive them of the essential learning that they are missing by being in school. Germs are out there. COVID is not going away. There is no cure, but that does not mean that we should live our lives in fear and deprive anyone, especially our children, of their opportunities. Anyone who feels like keeping our children out of school is preventing them from getting this disease, they are wrong. This disease is here to stay. If anything, it is just postponing the inevitable because at some point we will get it. The good news is the majority of us will weather it just fine. This is the way communicable diseases work. I also have concerns about my own children because as online learning is happening, it is near impossible to have an ADHD children engaged without a parent to sit with them all along the way, and even then they are not picking up what is happening. This isn't possible with all the schedule overlapping that is happening. My deaf children can't even understand what the teacher is saying over the computer, so they are not learning anything. I think my special needs children are suffering the most. The screen time of any kind makes my child unable to keep himself focused and emotionally under control, and now you are asking him to be on it all day. Their IEPs are not being followed due to the assumption that children not being able to sit in front of the computer that long after all of their other classes. They are getting 10 minutes a week of their services instead of getting the amount of time allotted in their IEP. As pandemic medical providers, we feel strongly that the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC should be some of the main sources that should be taken into consideration when it comes to the well-being of our children, and by extension, the community as a whole. We feel very strong that with both the AAP and the CDC having recommended that children go back to school as soon as possible, that we as parents and those in charge of their educational need to work to make that happen immediately. In my husband's job, he has seen the strain that being at home has had, not only on the underserved community members, but on our children in general. As part of their well child visits, all children over the age of 12 are given a depression screening. To date, every child he has screened since the school shutdown began has shown signs of depression. As a medical provider, this is extremely concerning to him about the well-being of all children should this shutdown continue. In conclusion, our children need to be back in school immediately for their good, their learning, and the emotional health of our community. The surveys have been taken by parents and teachers, and they show that both parents and teachers feel that it is in their children's best interest to have in-person school resume immediately. Those who don't feel comfortable with that option have been given a choice. Please now allow the rest of us to have a choice that we feel is best about and allow our children to start back to in-school in person. I would ask that you please follow the recommendations of the experts and send our kids back to school. Melina Rengel, children at Sossaman Junior High and Centennial Elementary. Please do not forfeit safety for loud voices demanding business as usual. Both my students' schools have excellent virtual learning options. My students feel safe and want to return when they know they will not be at risk or put their loved ones at risk. I worry these small groups of parents with loud voices will try to change the current course. I've seen their social media, and it appears their complaints are not validated, and most have not tried to learn technology to prepare their students for minor changes in the long run. Jennifer Giabris, children at Williamsfield and Higley Traditional Academy. Members of the board, this is our first year with the school district as we switched from a charter school, and we're excited to do so. We are starting to second-guess our decision. For the first time ever, my 5th grade daughter, who is happy-go-lucky, has hated school, or what this is called. The lack of direct instruction and actual interaction is detrimental to my child and her mental health. She feels she is not truly learning as she cannot raise her hand and get a direct help during her assignment time. While the teachers do their best to physically interact and speak is always better, she was in tears yesterday due to frustration of not getting her needs met. Her words, quote, "This is the worst year ever for school," end quote. Discontinued remote learning is not helping my students. How are high school students supposed to grow and meet the necessary hours for school with only 2 hours a day of direct interaction? Honors courses online is not enough time, and when a teacher leaves 30 minutes into class, what kind of message does that send to the students? I'm done, so goodbye, and go do your work, but I'm not available. This is not okay. I'm worried the future looks like not only my children, but all Higley students. We are failing them by not allowing them in-person interaction and direct instruction. What is going to happen when students don't meet their benchmarks for passing? Are you prepared for summer school at no cost to parents to make sure the students get caught up, or are all those students going to be held back? How is HUSD going to make sure that 3rd graders meet the state requirement for reading when there is only virtual learning and teachers cannot see what a child's real capability of? If students get held back, how is this district going to handle the mental health of these children who will think they are not capable of passing a grade? What will this do to our teenagers? There is already a rise in suicides due to social isolation. Having students repeat a grade could possibly increase the numbers. Students need to be in school. If proper PPE is supplied and used correctly, why can't students and teachers be where they should be, in school? This is from George. He has not listed a school. Just wanted to thank the board for considering educators, students, and staff safely while our community navigates through this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. It's from Donald Anderson, students at Higley High. Thank you for recently choosing to remain in remote learning in HUSD. Since the County Health Department has issued the Safe Start guidelines, I support using data, metrics, and facts to determine when it is safe for my student to return to on-campus learning at the school. I do not understand the rushed return of the other schools, given that outcomes of returning too early are potentially damaging to students, the school staff, and the community at large. I urge the board to stand by their decision moving forward and to prioritize safety over speed. The question is less about when school should resume and really more about how long schools can stay open when they do resume. Thank you for your many, many, many hours of dedication. Carrie Matthew, student Higley High. I would like to thank the school board and district administration for being diligent and circumspect in their decision to delay the reopening of school until health experts agree that it is safe for all who spend our days in the school buildings, students and staff. I have been impressed with the integrity and care you've taken and appreciate that your primary concern is the safety of students and staff. Matthew Gray, Higley High. I would like to thank members of the school board for making teachers and students feel safe by postponing the opening of our class in school. It has made our community safer and will continue to do so. Thank you so much, board members. Keep us safe. Final one, Andrew Bacio. No school listed. As a district teacher, I would like to thank the board for all of their hard work. Also, I would encourage the board that a rush to in-person classes is a bad idea, both for the well-being of students and teachers. Thank you, board. That's all of the requests we had for today.
Thank you again, Dr. Thomason, for reading all those for us. Okay, we're going to
President Kaler,
Yes, Dr. Thomason.
members of the board, I just want to let you know we read these in order as we received them, so it wasn't set up to be all positive or all negative.
Yes, I know Mrs. Reach organizes those for us very well. Thank you for that. Okay, we are going to move on to our consent agenda items. I move that we approve consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.9.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns on the consent? I just want to go over the 6.6. Dr. Fowler, could you just explain that to us in a nutshell?
President Kaler, members of the board, cabinet, Dr. Thomason and cabinet, I just want to talk briefly about this particular item. When we originally put the purchase in for the request for the flooring at Waynesfield, is that the number we're at? I'm sorry.
This is the gift donation
Oh,
for...
I'm sorry. I'm going to defer to Dr. Thomason because he
Oh,
is more
sorry.
of an expert on this.
Okay, you're still coming.
President Kaler, members of the board, this was a donation that was given to the district in the form of a land donation many, many years ago, 4 superintendents ago, when Mr. Larry Likes was the district superintendent. At that time, he there was a donation of land made to the district by Continental Properties. There was also a point at that time when we had impact fees for builders that built within our school boundaries. The impact fees could be $500 a rooftop, $1,000 a rooftop, or $1,500 a rooftop, depending on the cost of the homes that were being built in that area. So in return for the donation, we waived the impact fees or the rooftop fees at that time. Now, there were more homes built in that area, but of course, with the recession, things had stopped for a while, and the building has continued to happen now as we're starting to grow. And so the donation of the land was an offset of the rooftop fees we have, but since that time, he has surpassed the in-kind donation, and so there was an opportunity for him to pay for the rooftop fees that exceeded the amount of the donation that he gave the school district. And the exceeding of that donation was $32,746 that you see that Continental Properties is a great partner with the Higley Unified School District, is donating to the district for those impact fees that the district utilizes to help run our district.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that gift. Any other questions, comments, or concerns in consent? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to our action and information items. 7.1, any questions? Although Mr. Holland is not here tonight, if they have any, I'm sure that we can email him. Nothing? Okay, we are going to move to 7.2. Okay, so I move in consideration of the recommendations of guidance issued by the Centers for Disease Control, the Arizona Department of Health Services, and the executive order issued by the governor of the state of Arizona. It is requested that the governing board adopts this face covering policy for all students, employees, volunteers, and visitors of the district.
Second.
Any comments?
Yes, I do have a comment.
Okay.
I was looking around just at other schools in the valley just to see what's going on. I just found this really nice one I want to read with you. As we look forward to the fall and at this time proceed cautiously in planning for a return for in-person classes, we understand that our only hope is minimizing the spread of COVID is to partner with our entire community in that effort. In that end, we introduce the AMDG 2020 program and ask that our parents and students community join us both on and off campus in the following practices. Number one is A for awareness. Awareness of your own health symptoms, hand hygiene, and how these considerations can impact others. M is for masks. It has been proven that masks are effective deterrents to spreading the disease. Thus, we will require faculty, staff, and students to wear masks while on campus. We ask our families to do the same when they go out in public places. Distancing. Distancing will be required on campus to the extent that campus spaces will be allowed. This is my favorite. It's G, for the greater good. We ask that the men and women in our schools, for others of our extended community, focus on the greater good and work to protect one another and especially the medically fragile in our community at large. And they have this whole program, and it was just really neat. You know, maybe we might want to think of anything. It's called AMDG, and they kind of like the awareness, mass, distance, and greater good. And I just kind of thought this was really nice. Okay, I'd just like to give credit to Brophy Prep School, and I believe this is where our governor's son just recently graduated. He's quite familiar with Brophy School, and I just wanted to share with you that they're requiring masks at all time on their campus and how this school is sharing it with the community and how important it is for them to be role models in the community and to go out there and do what's right for everyone. So I just wanted to share how nice this school is doing in reference to that.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Witovich. And in education, we all love a good acronym, don't we?
Yeah.
Just add it to
So I
our
can start with
list
figuring something
of all the other ones that we yet to memorize. Mrs. Reese.
Thank you, President Kaler. I just have question and concern under students for A, that we have changed it from kindergarten to preschool. While they do say that no child under 2 should wear a mask, but 3 to 5 can. That's very difficult and very challenging. So I do have some concerns that we've changed this from kindergarten to preschool. I think that for our teachers will be really difficult for keeping a mask on, having their attention. If this is, my concern is if this is a policy, then it's more than a recommendation, it's a policy. My request would be that we go back to kindergarten with it within our policy and make a strong request in our preschools so our teachers can help them learn. It's a learning process, and we have 3-year-olds on our preschool campuses. Those 4-year-old pre-Kers that, you know, they may even turn 5, and I'm even good with putting an age group of 5. So in October, they've turned 5. They've missed the kindergarten cutoff, so they're doing pre-K, things like that. But I've seen 3-year-olds try and wear masks, and it is more work for a teacher to try and keep a mask on a 3-year-old, that would be their focus until that can't be their focus any longer and they end up giving up. And then we have a policy we're not following. So that's just my concern of changing it from kinder to preschool, is that it's a difficult age. There are some safety issues with that. Obviously, not nearly the safety issues of them under 2, but again, my concern is when it becomes a policy, the strong expectation that that's followed is very different than recommendation. If a teacher in preschool can spend the time working with kids on wearing a mask and hopefully ultimately get them wearing masks properly for the amount of time they're there as a recommendation, but that's just my concern as a policy.
President Kaler, Vice President Reese, I hear your concern. One of the things in talking about that change, that recommendation for the change came from also our work with what do we do when someone gets sick? What is the protocol for keeping safety? And a lot of it has to do with the wearing of a mask. You'll notice that in that policy, the next 2 bullets allow for, when we're talking about students, we're talking about the student, again, on a case-by-case basis, medical reasons are determined by a staff member, and in some cases, the spacing, where there can be the determination, where there can be enough space, that the policy allows for that, being that this would be something that would be consistent with practice across the district. Again, not ideal, but it really does play into the what happens when someone gets sick, whether or not they're a primary or secondary contact has to do with the wearing of a mask when that physical distancing wasn't possible. And so again, it is a challenge, and preschool rooms meet unique needs of individual students in that room, and some, again, can allow for more physical distancing than others. Again, the points you have brought up are ones that we've also had and have concerns about, but felt that because of the process for consistency with the allowing in that policy for where physical distancing can occur and exceptions being made, that they would be encouraged that when possible, or when physical distancing is not possible, that masks would be worn and taught the importance of, because it truly does have an influence on the next piece about what happens if or when someone gets sick, and that mask determines whether you are a primary or secondary contact, versus monitoring symptoms or being isolated for quarantining kind of thing. So I hear you.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I just worry about the teachers having to spend more time with those kiddos, putting masks back on them, causing the teachers to be closer to the kids, and having more physical contact with those kids, putting these masks back, on and off. And some are made that there is a right way because it goes over your nose, and the kids having them upside down, and the teachers really having to put them on for these kids. So it is causing the teachers to have a closer physical contact more often, helping these kids get them back on. So that's my concern. I appreciate you guys have gone through that, but I stick by that concern and think it's going to be a lot of work for those preschool teachers, that if we can encourage it and continue to teach them how to wear it, but that it's not their whole day putting masks back on 3-year-olds.
Do we have any views from a preschool teacher? Has anyone reached out to preschool teachers on this? I would assume.
I think a lot of our preschool teachers have the same concerns as our general ed teachers, and not just their safety, but the safety of the kids. While we do realize that it won't be a seamless thing, it's just like teaching them to sit in a chair or wash your hands or get in line. I totally respect that. I think we view our preschool teachers just like all of our teachers up through 12th grade. So while we understand that it wouldn't happen right away and it would take a lot of practice, everything we do takes lots of repetition and practice. So that's really kind of where it came from, and we tend to think of our district as a pre-K through 12 district. So
Thank you.
Mr. Glover, did you want to say something?
I don't know. I don't want to
is
seem
it-
like an utter hypocrite. I tend to
No.
agree with you,
No,
so I just want to tell you
I
that.
was wondering if it could be, if, well, we were going to have the mask policy back in the day was going to be strongly, I love the words we use, strongly recommended and encouraged,
Strongly requested.
strongly requested and
And encouraged.
encouraged. So if this is something the board wants to chew on,
President Kaler, members of the board too, we also have to ensure that our policy is not in conflict with some of the requirements from the Maricopa County Department of Health Services, or if Gilbert puts a policy in place through them too, is that they kind of have to align a little bit. And I think this does a great job of aligning it. We will definitely have exceptions for those individuals that are unable to keep the mask on and do the best we can. But I think this aligns to what the current Maricopa County Board of Directors has put in place at this time. If that changes, then our policy should follow what their recommendations are.
Well, can I just follow one more thing? So regardless of how you go, if these kids are, I mean, if they're given the latitude to take it off, I really hope for I think that they would be more likely to have them off, probably, because of all the things that you said. So, you know, things like, I know that taking a temperature is not a good indicator, but maybe that happens with a greater frequency at the nursery school, you know, with the digital things, the spacing, the teacher to student ratio, and that we spread out as much as we can. So some attention is paid to that, because geez, I've seen kids that 2-year-olds, they don't even want to be in a diaper, and they're not going to wear a diaper, and this is a mask. It's like, so, yeah, anyway, so I hear you.
we do have time. This is the second read, though, so if we were to vote tonight and pass this, it would be policy.
Mrs. Kaler, I'm okay with it being policy. I'm just concerned with it being policy, what that will put on our teachers. And I hear the teacher, and I agree, our teachers are pre-K through 12. I don't disagree with that. And I've seen 3-year-olds, and we have, since the town of Gilbert, they put theirs in, and theirs was 5, that they recommended 5 and over. For us, our requirement is 5 and over. We give the option of 3 to 5. But with that option is that if they're going to wear it, they need to wear it, because the more they put it on and take it off, the higher risk of spreading it to other people and things like that. And then with seeing my staff having to, no, I want to wear my mask, well, then they're in close proximity of that child, somewhat face to face, and they're putting them on. So I'm okay with it being policy. I wanted to state I'm concerned with it being policy. I don't have a problem with it being greatly requested and that we try and do it. I also worry about our teachers being so focused on individuals, and again, it depends on the teacher's comfortability, but if they're so focused on consistently having to put masks on because this is what we have to do, then they could spend a better part of their day for several weeks helping 3-year-olds put their mask on correctly, keep their mask on. Not saying it can't be done, I agree, just like washing their hands. We have 1-year-olds who wash their hands the proper way, but that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time and repetition. And again, if that's what the teachers are very insistent and want, I can support that. I just worry about them having to be consistently in close proximity, almost face to face. 3-year-olds may not, they may drool a little bit more, or, things like that. And I know our teachers can wear gloves and they can wash their hands. I get they can take all those precautions. It's just one more thing, though, that does put them a little closer in proximity of kids than we would need to worry about. But if you're comfortable with that, and that's the recommendation that they really want to go with in preschool, I can support that. I just don't want the teachers to be like some of these kids we only have in our care for 4 hours, and if we're constantly putting masks on, then that can be challenging.
So, Vice President Reese, I think either way we go with it, I know Patty Gleason and Stacy Utley will be kind and loving and thoughtful, and it's not a discipline issue, my goodness, when I can't keep my mask on. So either way we go with it, there's not a perfect answer here, and I respect it. And I know all about snotty noses and drool and just wiggle. So either way we go, I know they'll work hard to keep our kids safe.
And by any means, am I saying that even if it's not in policy that we should not be doing it? It doesn't give the green light of, well, it's not in policy, so we don't need to. That from a preschool standpoint, they can say, this is what we're going to do. We just know it's going to take us the time to get through it. And if a teacher feels like I can't, not today, then I want to give them that ability to do that, instead of perhaps another parent coming in and saying, well, that's the Higley policy and they're not following it. That's like I said, by no means am I saying if this is not in our policy that we should not really encourage it. It's not means that we shouldn't even say that they're, highly requested or even required within it. But that was just my only concern there. So,
Thank you, Mrs. Reese. I think we're just going to go on this, go ahead and vote tonight on this mask policy, face covering policy. And I do agree with you, Mrs. Richards, that Mrs. Gleason will be very kind in this area, and the teachers as well. And we know, like you said, the beginning of preschool, and maybe this is a chance too that we can talk for just a second, that if we are thinking about coming to our preschools when they do open, that practicing mask wearing on your little 3- and 4-year-old here and there would never be a bad idea. And I know I've seen, the kiddos out in Target with mom and practicing, so that can be something that we can kind of just talk about.
And practicing with all of our kiddos. The 5-year-olds are going to be going
My
back.
16-year-olds.
And I feel like they maybe need a reminder, like if you're watching this, hey, it might be a good time to start practicing that mask with your 5-year-old, because I have thought long and hard about this mask policy and what that means for our kinder friends and all those teachers all the way up. So it might be a good time to start thinking about that, even with your 16-year-old, Mrs. Kaler.
It's one thing to go into a store for a minute with a mask on. It's another thing to sit and do school for a few hours with a mask on. So I think everybody's going to have to, when schools do reopen, that we're all going to have to kind of go through that process of adjusting. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now it's to 7.3. And let me get there. This is the floors, Dr. Fowler. So I move that the governing board approves the price increase of $41,376 to upgrade the flooring for the Higley High School and Williamsfield High School media centers.
Second?
Thank you. Dr. Fowler, can you please give us an update on this?
Thank you, President Kaler, members of the board, Dr. Thomason, and members of cabinet. So I was going to start earlier, but no. The item that you have before you tonight, this action item related to the floors, let this be evidence of our continued efforts to always be as frugal with our funds as possible. When we selected the floor for both the media centers, we were looking at an alternative that was the least expensive. The challenge, though, that we had was once we looked at a mock-up of that flooring with getting input from Ben Uholtz with extensive experience in the field, and then the principals, we realized that although it was a less expensive option, it wasn't going to be sufficient to meet the needs in that larger space. So we had to look at an alternative, and that alternative included, instead of just having the epoxy, to adding a color chip, as they call it, to the floor to make it not slick, and also add to the feel, and especially in those larger spaces in the media center. So the price that you saw, the original price, that was already built into the cost, and so it's only the additional piece that we're paying, and that's the cost of adding, making those chips and mixing that into and adding it to the epoxy flooring.
And really, this is a safety issue because without those chips, it's very slick.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
What's the durability like on this floor? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I mean, it's a quality epoxy with those chips, and so we're feeling that it'll stand the test of time.
Yeah, I just have a little concern, being that it is at our high school. I'm just thinking about it now, like those kids kind of can be rough sometimes. So just a thought on the durability of it and making sure that it's a good durability to make sure that, they're not going to chip it away or do something like that.
Well, we are using Wholesale Floors, which is a vendor that has done a lot of our floor installs, and one of the benefits of working with a partner like Wholesale Floors is they stand behind their product, and so I'm confident if there's any issues that may arise with that they'll stand behind their product.
Thank you.
That was kind of my question too, was what is the warranty? How long do they give us on a warranty?
You know what, I'm not sure on that answer, President Kaler, but I do know, and Board Member Wilson, that, as I've said in the past, they stand behind their product, and so I'm confident that if we have any issues with Wholesale, I'll confirm the warranty, but this company has been with us for many, many years, and I'm confident that they'll stand behind this product for us.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. On to buses. I move that the governing board approves the purchase of 6 buses from Canyon State Bus Sales for the tune of $842,300.40. Questions or comments for, I know even Mr. Crosby is here tonight. Is that correct? Yes.
I
Mrs.
did ask
Wilson.
a question beforehand. I want the community to know what my question was. It was about air conditioning, to make sure all of our buses are up to snuff on air conditioning. So Mr. Crosby's here if he wants to come in and maybe just answer that. These will put all of our buses at having air conditioning, which I was excited about because I knew there was 1 or 2 out there that we may have loaned to charter schools at time to time that did not have air conditioning. So this puts us right on par to have all of our buses air conditioned, right, Mr. Crosby?
Correct, yes, our fleet is 100% air conditioned.
And we're not retiring any buses at this time, correct?
My recommendation would be to hold on to all the vehicles we have because we're unsure of future growth and future bond money. So at this point, I would recommend we hold on to all of our buses.
And just again, a thank you to our community so that this is bond money that is being used for the purchase of these buses. So I appreciate that. Mrs. Reese.
President Kaler, I was just going to state that this has been in the works for some time. You just don't order buses overnight. So I get the timing seems strange at the moment, especially that we're physically not in school, but this has been some time. You've done a lot of research to make sure we're getting what we need for our district and our community. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your forethought on let's not retire anything yet and see where we are and what we need to do and how we grow. And then we'll have availability there before we let anything go. So thank you for that thought, Mr. Crosby.
One more thing. How many buses do we have? I have no idea. I think it might have been in here at one point.
It is.
Okay.
So we have 78 buses. It does say 77 on the paperwork, but there is one white special needs bus that didn't get included in the yellow bus count.
Okay.
So
I think that's important. for our
34 of
community.
them are special needs, and the remaining 44 are full size.
Thank you.
Yes, again, and I'm not trying to be negative Nelly, but these buses, it's coming to us again a little bit later than I would have preferred. I would have preferred to get this on the front end and not the back end, this dollar amount. I know the buses are already ready to go, have our name on them. So, and again, I know it's been in the works and in the talk, just coming to us, maybe not first and foremost. But with that said, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Crosby, for coming tonight. Okay, we're going to move on to 7.5. I move that the governing board approves the purchase of laptops for students participating in graphic information technology programs.
Second.
And I believe this is, we are using CTE funds to purchase these specific computers for the students, if I am not mistaken. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And now we are going to have an update on reopening of our schools.
President Kaler, members of the board, tonight we have some updates for you on a few timely topics that we wanted to share with you. The first thing we're going to talk about tonight in our agenda is we're going to talk about what is scheduled and what will be happening starting August 17th for the required on-site support services that are required per executive order 2020-51, and we will share with you some updates about that so that we can clarify for our community that information as well as provide additional updates. We also have information tonight for athletics that is also continuing to evolve, so we have an update and then conversation about more updates that will be forthcoming. We have a human resources update, and then we'll do a metrics benchmark update as well. So we're going to start by talking about tonight those targeted support services.
President Kaler, members of the board, Dr. Thomas, and members of cabinet. So beginning on August 17th, 2020, the school districts must provide free on-site support services for students who need a place to go during any time of distance learning. That's the first start of a quote from Denise Lowell-Britt, talking about what our Executive Order 2020-51 meant for the Arizona school districts. And so while it required us to, or asked us to look at metrics, it also said on the 17th we need a place to go. So we've been working on this plan very, very diligently throughout the last week, and I need to give a lot of credit to, as we go through this plan, to Ms. Richards, as she's been helping spearhead this, especially at the elementary level, and our site principals, our academic coaches, and the rest of the district. We're kind of taking this as an all-hands-on-deck approach to supporting our kids when they're coming on our campuses. And so what this is asking us to do is that to make sure that we had our mitigation plan, social distancing, and have a service available for those kids who need And so tonight, what we're going to try to do is explain to you what our plan is going forth on the 17th. More specific language came out that said free on-site learning and support services include but are not limited to student supervision, nutrition, health services, strategic support, or teacher-led paraprofessional support for students participating in distance learning. On-site support services will be available to a limited number of students with specific needs and does not require traditional teacher-led in-person classroom instruction. These services allow students who need a safe place to engage in distance learning away from home. Schools may develop procedures to meet recommendations for physical distancing and other mitigation strategies outlined by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And so I think a lot of times when people hear this idea of the free on-site support services, really there was more specific instruction given to us about who, and tried to clarify who it was for and then what we're going to do for them.
President Kaler, members of the board, Dr. Thomason, and cabinet, we've tried to outline our plans specifically so that families know what they're signing up for if they do sign up or register to attend. So these are free opportunities. However, it's not teacher-led instruction because our teachers are currently teaching and they're very involved in that all day. So principals have been calling families to clarify what this means because we don't want kids showing up and saying, where's my teacher? What is this? Where are my specials, my electives? Because that's not what's happening here. So this is somewhat repetitive of what Mr. Lotzenhauser just shared with you. So we're going to provide student supervision and strategic support for kids that are on their Canvas learning platform engaged in remote learning. So if they have questions, accessing content, questions about assignments, and believe it or not, this next week we start DIBELS or Acadience testing, and we have our CBEST testing. So kids may have questions and they will need support. Also, we have an amazing team of people here because our classified paraprofessionals, we even have bus drivers signed up to help, directors, assistant directors from the district, instructional coaches, and of course, every time I talk to you, I highlight our lovely preschool teachers. And everybody's working together. We have them tentatively assigned to sites at this point, and we'll double check registration for numbers. Maintenance and cleaning is a very, very important part of this whole process. The boxes you saw on Saturday are ready to go. They're getting sent to the sites, and training's going to happen with the individuals that will be in these locations for kids. So we're looking forward to being very organized because this is a different model than anything we've ever done before. Oh. Next slide, yeah. So this outlines some of the kids that will benefit potentially from this opportunity. It includes our special education students, our students that are learning English, at-risk students, homeless students, or we refer to McKinney-Vento students, of course, our employees' kids if they need this, and children of essential workers. So everything's been strategically lined out. Transportation is available for our self-contained SPED students, which we call level C and D. A lot of those teachers have volunteered to come in and support those kids because March was a long time ago. And we're excited that maybe we can provide that individualized support in a very careful, thoughtful manner with keeping those mitigation strategies in place. Our EL students and our title students will also have specific support.
I'm sorry, Ms. Richards. You said, you said that we've already been in touch with the families?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry if you said that. I'm sure you did.
Well, initially, we sent out the survey where they said, do you want online, do you want in person? And then we described this. So they replied. But on
I'm
top,
sorry, yeah, I think, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was talking about the special ed
Yes.
specific ones, the level C and D. Okay.
Miss Miller has personally called every family. And I don't want to add up the hours, but that personal touch and her ability to work closely with our staff and ensure that we're safe when we do this, she's been outstanding. Okay, next slide.
When we talk about hours of support, really the goal originally was to model the exact hours from the previous school year. I know we've all read those executive orders that said, hey, you have to give it for the same amount of time as the previous school year. And so you'll look at the elementary and that completely mirrors what they did last year. And so those are the hours of support. You will notice originally with our middle schools, we were doing 9 to 4. And we were doing 9 to 4 because that's what we used to do. However, we know that instruction starts at 8 and not 9, and so therefore we have adjusted that, and our principals and the sites have reached out to people requesting it, that we are moving it to mirror that so that we can help support them when classes start at 8 in the morning. And so instead of going from 9 to 4, it's now going to go from 8 to 3. And then our high school is consistent once again with the high school schedule of 7:25 to 2:15.
And my question is, the high school starts at 8 too. So we didn't move that one to
We
8?
didn't move that one back because we felt like it still encompassed the time that they were in there. It was truly, if we started at 9, they're missing out on an hour, and we didn't want that. If they come in earlier at 7:25, we'll still be able to support the high school, and they'll be ready to go at 8 o'clock. Next slide, please. And so when we talk about the guidelines and what's happening on our campuses, please understand that like with the first one, they'll have a designated classroom, so we'll have limited spaces that there are going to be on campus. This is not going to be coming to campus. We're going to be spread out about where it's going to happen. We will be using multi-purpose rooms, cafeterias, gymnasiums to allow us to put more kids spread out in a location than just within a classroom. A lot of this is going to depend on the registrations and the numbers that we have. The more kids that we have, the more space that we're going to need so that we can maintain that physical distancing and spread them out on campuses. So we will be assigning those classrooms based upon the registration.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
About technology in that situation?
Okay?
If a kiddo brings their own laptop from home into our space, how are we getting them on the internet? Does anyone know?
So we're
Sorry.
encouraging,
I'm like, oh, I don't know that. I did not even think about it until this very moment. So
Well,
I apologize for
you're
not.
fine.
Okay.
So elementary set, and it's actually in the next slide, IT has worked with us to get enough laptops and headphones for every kid that comes. So the kids that come for secondary, we're encouraging them to bring their district administered or whatever, rented out, what do I call it? Loaned
The
out.
district loaned
Yes.
out device, I think is what we probably are calling it at this point.
But I haven't dealt with that question, if we can work with IT to get them on, because there is a way. We do know IT is going to be available to support us, so.
Isn't there like a VPN number that they can sign on to and then sort of like it? The Wi-Fi is open so they can.
Okay, I wasn't sure that the
Okay.
Wi-Fi was open on all of our
Okay.
campuses. That was really
Okay.
my question.
Okay.
Is our Wi-Fi? Yes, it is. Curtis is telling me it is definitely for sure open on all the campuses. Thank you.
I have a question for this. So we don't know exactly what the ratio is going to be quite yet because we're going to still confirm. But what is our goal for our ratio for?
I know the answer for elementary. I'm going to stay out of his.
Okay. Okay.
So elementaries are shooting for 1 to 10, and if needed, 1 to 15. So we're working really hard because the feedback we got from the kids club was some of those kids, those little kids, need more support technology-wise. So in the perfect world, it's 1 to 10. We're also getting some substitutes that will be, and I know Ms. Martins might want to talk about that later, but we're trying to overstaff for Monday rather than understaff, if that makes sense.
And then I guess my question would be, it would be 1 to 10, and those 1 are going to be with only those 10?
That's what our goal is, to cohort
And so we're not going
those
to be
all day long.
all day
You're-
long, kind of how we did it in Kids Club. But
Yes.
that person is going to stay with those
Yes.
kids, siblings together kind of thing as well, if possible.
The siblings thing, there's been feedback both ways on that.
Yes, I have
And-
twins. Sometimes they're great
Yeah.
together, sometimes they're not, so I get it.
But sometimes just getting kids online at the same time versus like things overlapping on top of each other, so.
And secondary?
At the secondary level, we haven't really designated a ratio because we're looking at using some of our larger facilities to spread the kids out on tables. And so honestly, it could look like there's 30 kids within the gym or the cafeteria with 2 adults supervising or walking around through that area. Right now, our secondary numbers are tracking a lot lower than our elementary numbers are.
President Kaler, members of the board, one of the things that was important in that survey was for us to begin to get an idea of the number who might have taken advantage of that. And so that initial survey, we had people who said, yes, they were interested in doing that. We've reached out to those individuals, and because registration, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, is very, very important, and that will help us. Obviously, we are planning on staffing for the higher number, but to give an example, for instance, at Higley High School, there may have been 72 people who indicated that they were wanting to take advantage of those services. And at this point, we have 8 registrations. So again, registration, we're going to stress how important that will be. Obviously, we'll be anticipated ready for the number, but registration is going to be huge. But the number, I think once we've provided clarity on what the support services are and how they're going to be structured, I think individuals decided either they were not interested in taking that or they still need to register, and that registration will be huge so that we can staff appropriately. But again, we are preparing for the highest number so that our supervision and staffing is appropriate. And truly, this is we are thankful for our employee groups across all who are ready to be there to help and be part of staffing, because again, we're going to make sure we're safe and secure for everyone. So,
Can parents pick up at any time? How does that work?
That's a great
Yes.
segue to the next bullet
Okay,
up
thank
there.
you. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So, yes, we know because of the numbers that, yes, parents have the ability to bring their kids in and take them out when they need to be able to, and especially since we are here to provide support. So if they come and they're able to do their support and get everything done, we also know that supervision with kids as they're sitting there, and if they don't have extra things to do and things like that, can also create a challenge. So we're asking and encouraging parents that please come in and get the support that they need, and then they do have the ability then to come and pick up their children.
Will libraries be open? Or media center,
Some of them
that
are-
was like a valid question, right? That
Yeah.
especially more at, not so much high school because I know they're under construction, but more the middle schools and elementary. If they got done with their homework and their parent still needs them to sit, it might be important that
We
our
can
media
definitely,
centers, we can pull some books.
allow them to check
Yeah.
out some books. Some of the media centers are being used
Okay.
for children, so we'll navigate that. I think we just don't know how many kids we're getting, and after a couple of days, we'll be more informed, I would say. But yes, yeah.
Mrs. Richards, can you kind of describe, for instance, like a first graders, if I remember correctly, is done at like 8:55 or 9:25. They all run together, but so what would it look like from the time they're done with their live lesson with their teacher? happens from there? I mean, if these kids are there until 3 o'clock, can you kind of describe what that somewhat looks like?
So that's the challenge, Vice President Reese, and that's why we've been calling families intentionally to describe, this is what this looks like. So they'll have their live lesson with their teachers, and then they'll have recorded or live specials opportunity. They will have scheduled breaks, like stretching movement breaks, go outside, have a mask break. They can bring a snack. They'll also have the opportunity before it starts for breakfast and lunch, those things. That's the concern, is this is not school with a teacher. So they will have those assignments in all core areas that they can work on with the support of the adults we have in there. So
I'm thinking more along the lines of some of our essential workers who will need their kids to be there during that time.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to get an idea of what that's going to look like. Is there any other specific activities to keep them busy? Are we going to keep them in front of this screen the whole time? Like if they're kind of like we are here, I mean, I've completed my work, they've
Now what do I
whatever,
do?
and it's 10 o'clock in the morning and I've done my assignments. I'm here until 3.
So that's things we're working through. This is a challenge for us because, like I said, our teachers are teaching. And so as we navigate it, bringing books is one thing from home that they could read. I think our concern is making sure parents really understand what this was designed to be and what it's not. And so I don't want children to suffer, absolutely not. So as we walk through this, we'll be able better to navigate it. Kids Club is open. It's Sossaman Preschool. So some families are choosing to continue that route. They'll have preschool kids, but all the way up through 12 years old, and they're structured a little differently. So I know that's not a perfect answer right now, but we've really struggled with, is this, fun with recess and a whole bunch of activities, or is this just on-site free support for learning? So you're right. What about those kids that sit there till 3?
I think we've answered most on this slide. The only thing is that we are asking that when they come, they are engaging in their schoolwork, and that will be an expectation if you're there. Next slide,
Is there
please.
somewhere in this slide presentation, is that coming up, is that when they come on campus, are we going to get to that?
We will
check-in?
definitely talk about that.
Okay,
It's
let me
not
know when we
bulleted as a bullet, but
Once again, going through school guidelines, just about masks will be required and for students and staff when they are on campus, with the idea that, yes, there will be built-in masks, breaks, and when we have the ability to social distance and are beyond 6 feet, then we have that ability then to have the flexibility with the masks. For the elementary students, like Mrs. Richards said, IT has worked and we have laptops and headphones available for them, so they don't need to transport back and forth. However, with the secondary schools, we are asking them to bring their own devices and come. We will have a limited number available should the need arise, but we're asking for those secondary folks to come and bring the headphones and devices. Breakfast and lunch will be offered similarly, and this is where the registration process is important for us, so we can kind of plan about how many kids we know we're needing at every site, especially with lunch with food services. And it's going to be consistent with what it would be during a regular school year, meaning free and reduced lunch rates apply. You can also bring your own lunch and snacks if necessary and you would like to. And we encourage people to bring water bottles and their own water bottles as well so that they have that with them on campus.
Hey, Board Member Witovich, I'm going to jump in here before we talk about student behavior expectations and clarify at the elementary sites, the individuals that have been assigned to these groups of kids will meet them out front to take them to their location. So that's what happens at the beginning of the day. We're asking that they get there prior to 8 o'clock since instruction starts at 8. If somebody's late, then we'll have somebody in the office be able to escort them. And dismissal will be very similar unless a parent chooses to pick their kid up at noon or earlier if they get done. So hopefully that answers, does that answer what you're asking?
Mrs. Richardson, I was just curious, when a student comes onto the campus, what is the protocol? Okay, I mean, okay, I just went and got a haircut today for the first time since for the pandemic, people. They took my temperature, okay? I had to sign a statement that I wasn't around anybody that had headaches or cold or anything like that, and I had to sign a waiver just to get a haircut today. So where are we at with this? I mean, somebody going to be checking, because when the parent brings the child up there, they're just going to drop them off. And if Johnny has a temperature or been around somebody, how are we going to know this? How are we going to safely protect our staff if parents just are dropping off perhaps a sick child and leave them? I'm really concerned for the safety of our staff here. How are we going to do this? Okay.
So, Board Member Mr. Witovich, one of the things, I think you've seen these family health screening expectations, the questions that, does your child have any one of the following? These are being printed, and if you saw them at Kids Club, they're outside every site. It's also part of the registration process that parents understand. Don't send your kid, I want to say to school. Sorry, don't send your kid to targeted support services if they have chills, congestion, diarrhea, etc. In the classroom or the multi-purpose rooms, there's hand sanitizer that the students can use. And if Miss Patty Gleason was here, she would say they all should go to the sink and wash their hands before they start. I'm not sure every space has a sink, but I am sure every space has hand sanitizer for sure. So on top of that, the training that our principals are going to work through with these employees prior to Monday, and you could probably go help them. Would you like to? So you're aware of the box of items. So I think this is a unique time because we're not doing recess. It's just kind of an odd setting, but they will be trained on how to keep these kids safe and the employees safe.
I'm just curious, is like the staff, I mean, if a child is sick there, or if a child's sick coming in, why aren't we having any nursing staff or a designated person as a greeter or why aren't we checking? If I'm getting checked to get my hair cut, why aren't we getting checked for these students coming in with I mean, just to safe, so everybody else is safe,
So every campus has a health aide that will be there. My campuses have indicated they're going to help greet and get people in the building. Yeah.
I know, Mr. Witovich, that even in the colleges, the children have to, the students have to take their own temperature in their room or their dorm. And so, it's professors trying to take everybody's temperature on the way in kind of thing. So they're asking that the student, and I guess that would be our hope with our families that, if your child wakes up and has little pink cheeks or something, that we would check that little temperature and make sure that that kiddo's okay.
President Kaler, members of the board, that's one of those self-responsibilities and that we're going to be teaching as a procedure that everyone has to be vigilant on being aware of how they're feeling, and if they're not, that they aren't not feeling well, that if it changes at any point, that their responsibility is to communicate that so that we can get them help and support. And you know, truly our students, when they understand the why and their role in that, I do believe they will take this seriously, but it's part of our community processes as from students to adults of awareness of how I'm feeling, and the communication of that and my responsibility for that is a big piece, a very big piece.
Can I ask
So
one
when it-
final question?
Yeah.
Because Mr. Witovich was talking about that. What about students who show up without a parent?
Okay, so when they register, the parents are indicating like how they get home, and if somebody's a walker, I know that we're going to have walkers, we're going to have bike riders. If somebody shows up that's not registered, we're going to have to hang on to them and get a hold of their families, because I can't let somebody in that I haven't verified they're supposed to be there, it's safe for them to be there, etc. So that's why one reason for this presentation is to inform families, you need to register before Monday because we want to be prepared. It's the worst thing I can do is tell a kid, you've got to sit here till I figure out what's going on.
So with this registration, are we sending it out again just to those that said
Yes.
they were interested? So
Correct.
And we're going to do that again tomorrow?
So it was sent to them, but we're following up with phone calls.
Okay, very good, thank you.
What
And
about a
I'm going to
parent?
applaud my principals for the time they've spent doing that, so.
What about a parent who's watching this presentation right now and is saying, hey, wait, I think I might need this?
So they should contact their school
Okay, great.
and say, I missed that, could you send it to me or help me register?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
President Kaler, members of the board, that we have this PowerPoint. We're required by executive order to put this information. We have actually created a parent version that mirrors this exactly on our website as well, with that information, as well as we're required to list our mitigation plan as well. So that's also on our website, so that we are in compliance with those components.
Okay, student behavior. We want families and students to know that we have high expectations to follow the code of conduct, whether we're on campus or virtual. We're the same Higley great kids every place we are. We want to ensure the safety of themselves and other students. We want to follow all prescribed health and safety expectations. Those questions that will be out front on the poster on the A-frame will also be posted in the locations where the kids are working, and they can be reminded of those. Part of that take care of yourself. We also want them to behave in a way that doesn't disrupt the learning of the other students in this environment. We want them to go straight to and from their assigned areas, and I think Mr. Lotzenhauser probably has systematic plans for secondary, where they enter, where they exit. And it's just like anytime we're with HUSD, we're going to be respectful. We're not going to disrespect staff or students, leave campus without permission. This is a support service, and we want to take care of these kids, but we also expect them to behave. Next slide, please. Okay, these are some of the parent expectations. They're going to verify the contact information and everything within Synergy is correct. We're going to work with them to make sure their immunizations are up to date. Health aides have been looking at all the kids that were interested to make sure everything's in sync. We're going to give them a week to get those updated. Also, give them information about free resources and free sites. Here's the daily health screening prior to arrival on campus. The parents and the students have to understand our code of conduct. If a child has specific health needs, we need to know. So if a kid has asthma or anything, we need to be informed, and we're not going to release a kid to just anybody that shows up. They have to have their ID.
I can just say thank you to whoever got our HUSD Code of Conduct up online. And it was just some clicks instead of 3 colors of paper for every child in the house. And the bus, everything was just online, and it was just wonderful. So I don't know who did that, but it was awesome this year. Thank you.
That's good. And just a little more detail, Dr. Foley spoke about this, but if parents can register by 12 p.m. on Thursday, we can adequately staff to support their children. We are saying they will not be allowed to attend. However, we're about children. So if somebody shows up and they haven't registered, we have paper copies for them to fill out, and we will do our best to get them in. It might be the next day. We just have to, align staffing to student needs. And we're also informing families that Kids Club has what we call wraparound care before and after at every site. In addition, at Sossaman Preschool, parents have the option, if they want to stay with the amazing Kids Club staff, they can do that as well. So I think that's it.
I just want to thank the staff that has agreed to do this.
Yes.
I know this isn't an easy choice, and I know it's a lot of our aides and a lot of our bus drivers you mentioned, and I'm sure that they're not normally used to being in a classroom setting, the bus drivers, so I just want to thank them because I know it's a hard choice to do this, and it's a big deal, so thank you.
It is.
Okay, the next part of our presentation today is an update on athletics. On August 5th, the AIA approved a fall calendar with staggered beginning of fall sports, and we'll go through the staggered beginning and the timelines. And so I think that had been a question that had been coming up quite a bit, and we were waiting for guidance from the AIA. And on the 5th, they decided, yes, there would be fall sports in Arizona. I think there are continuing discussions related to this, especially when you hear about the fact there's not going to be ASU football until the spring. Maybe for some of us U of A fans, that was okay, but things are getting pushed back into the spring in a lot of colleges. However, at this time, we have not received any further guidance from the AIA in terms of doing anything to change what the plan was done on the August 5th.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, Mr. Glover, you told me that one of the Pac-10 or whatever
Yeah,
schools already
Pac-12 did.
have said that they're not going to do this, and we're behind here, aren't we? I mean, if everybody else is doing this at college level, you think they would be a little farther ahead here.
It's been very, very interesting
Yes,
because there's a very diverse different paths that some of the conferences are taking and some of them are not, especially with the collegiate level. And then honestly, within the state of Arizona, there are some different places that are not going to. I think Tucson just pushed theirs back from football. They wouldn't start until October. And so there's a lot of different things that are in place. And so I'm going to go through this presentation today, but what I'd really like to do is we're preparing a much deeper dive into this for our next board meeting that I'd like to actually spend some time, have our athletic directors here. We can start talking about some different plans, some ideas. Within 2 weeks, who knows what's going to change? And so we might have to have a much significant update from where we're at. But under the rules of where we're at right now, here's kind of what we're going to do. These shortened seasons have been reduced. The playoffs have been reduced from 16 teams to 8 teams, so that eliminated basically a week from the season as well. The updated schedules, they started working on them today in terms of football. The 6A conference met today, and that's where our football teams are in. I was told we are very much pushing to make sure that we keep our Williams Field versus Higley football game. And then the 5A teams are starting. Conference meeting is tomorrow. And that's where we're going to start working on the other sports schedules. Students who choose online learning will be able to compete at the school that they've always competed at. That will not be a limitation for them to be able to participate in extracurricular activities. The transfer rules are still in place. We know that those transfers happen. There will still be hardships and appeals, different things to happen following typical AIA guidelines. This impacted winter sports as of right now by pushing their start date back. Normally they're the week of November 1st. They're going to be moved back a week for winter sports. So there could also be more overlap between winter sports and the fall sports if we're going to continue in the model that's currently going. And so where we are at, we're continuing to stay in our stage 3 of our progression until permissible practice is started. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about this permissible practice. I don't have the data up on the screen, but you all have a handout that showed the number of kids who attended, the coaches, and the number of students then who left because of sickness or illness. And you'll notice last week, we had a very good week on August 3rd. We are continuing to follow the protocols from this summer. And so included with that is in the temperature taking of when the kids come onto campus and the coaches asking the screening. We're going to continue that practice for athletics and activities after school until permissible practice starts. So if you take a look, these are the activities that we're participating in within the fall season. You'll notice golf starts Monday. I guess if there is a sport that can physical distance much more than other ones, it is golf. And so if you take a look at it, it starts with the first competition being then on August 24th. Their season does end a little sooner than the rest of them. You'll see October 26th through 29th. Spirit Line, August 17th is the beginning of tryouts for them. There are actually some rules I didn't include on this in terms of when tumbling and lifts can't start until September, so they need some time to practice before that is allowed. They have the longest season, and so you'll notice their final in the state competition is not until March 6th. But we also know that Spirit Line supports other sports throughout the season. Cross country delays a week starting on August 24th. The first competition on September 9th, and then the state championship is the November 12th and 13th. Those have been pushed back for what's happening. Swimming and diving starts August 24th. The first competition is pushed back till September 14th. I was in a meeting yesterday with the East Valley athletic directors. Swim and diving, there could be some significant changes because of the number of kids normally involved with those teams and the fact that they all go to the same pool. We are working. Not just we, all of the East Valley is working on how can we divide, so these meets might look significantly different. It might honestly be the boys' teams at one meet where the site where the girls are at a different one to reduce the number of people that's happening, and there could be a multiple sites going on at the same time. I'll have more guidance from that. That was just noted within our meeting yesterday, and then we're looking for further direction with swim and dive specifically. When we jump into volleyball, you'll notice they continue to be delayed. This is the staggered start that AIA talked about. That's the August 31st start for permissive practice. And then we go into competition on September 21st. So that's about 3 weeks at least behind where it normally would be. And then with the state championships, November 12th through 21. And then for football, football has been pushed back the furthest. And I think there's a lot of indicators. Other districts in different areas within the state have canceled football. I know up north, there's been a lot of fall sports that have already been canceled. I know that there's a lot of discussions amongst football within certain schools and districts around here. And so they've pushed it back to September 7th and the 3 weeks before practice starts. And I say the week of September 30th because the freshman game would be on that Wednesday, the 30th, where the first varsity game would be October 2nd. We are looking at a reduced season of 8 games for that. And then the state championships would be in December 11th and 12th. It's very much a puzzle piece with scheduling that's going on right now with the athletic directors trying to determine which schools are participating, which schools are not participating. Because like I said, I think Tucson has just moved theirs back as of yesterday, so they may not be participating within the AIA football. They might be doing their own thing starting in October down in Tucson. So that's kind of the staggered one. The questions that we're preparing to provide you more guidance and we would love to know input on basically is what does it look like to host an event starting in September? And what is that? Right now there isn't guidelines that says for spectators or processes or locker rooms or transportations procedures. Within the East Valley, we're going to be working with our neighboring districts to kind of come up with similar processes, because if our teams travel to another school, we want to know what's happening there. We are looking at transportation, and I know that's been an issue about making sure that our form and parent release, so if a parent wants to transport their kids to a competition, they will have that option so that they're not riding on the bus with them. These are all things that I'd like to bring back to you on the 26th so we can have a deeper dive into what starting of this athletics looks like. All of this has been about high school, and then we need to know that we already know our middle school athletics, the EVC, has been delayed until second quarter. We have a meeting on Friday. We're going to start looking at plans. So when I come back to you on the 26th, I want to provide for you a plan for the middle school athletics as well. There's a lot of moving pieces out there right now, and it seems like every time we have a direction going with this, it kind of changes. And so as we get further updates on that, we'll include it within our superintendent's report so that you can get some updates on it before we meet again on the 26th. Is there any questions?
I was just going to say, this whole guidelines for spectators hasn't even been talked about, correct?
As of right now, I don't have any guidance by the AI.
Yeah.
And Dr. Fowler could help me with this answer, but when we look at it, really the schools and the sites have been left to that traditionally. The AI has been responsible for playoffs,
Right.
where the sites have been responsible for that. So I think those are some of the decisions that we as a district need to be able to provide you guys options to be able to look and say, what would it look like?
We get to vote again
To-
on guidelines? Is that
I-
what you're going to bring back to us?
No, I think what I want to do is offer, these are the different options that we're going on and have us all included. on that. It's-
I shouldn't kid. It's a very
Okay,
serious
then
subject. It's just kind of ironic what's come our way and what hasn't come our way. Mrs. Wilson?
I too wanted to question the guidelines of the spectators, because we've all been, I think, to Higley High and saw the bleachers and how full they are, and I don't know that can happen this year like that again.
We do
I
have.
too want to think about that. I know you're new, but those bleachers get very tight. So that's a concern, I think, for all of us. Thank you for thinking ahead to know that you're going to probably need a presentation on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And one thing that we are happy about is starting last year, working with the National Federation of High Schools. They're called Pixelot cameras. So we do have camera systems that are available should we need to stream and do things, and that will be part of what we're looking at. We have those on the football fields, and we have them in the gyms as well. So lots of things to do an update, once again on the 26th, where we're going to provide a lot more information.
Good evening, President Kaler, members of the board, my fellow colleagues, as well as the HUSD community. So I'm going to be presenting a brief update from the human resources perspective. Some of this is going to be similar information that I communicated back on Saturday, on the 8th. So first, I want to start off with the executive order. Just as you said, Ms. Wilson, I want to thank all of our employees, and this is in correlation to what Ms. Richards said, everybody, it's all hands on deck. So from our classified all around the district to our administrators here at the district office, as well as our site administrators, in regards to needing to be available to support the services that we're anticipating for this coming Monday. So I know that there are some employees that are concerned, and I had communicated this on Saturday. That executive order talked about the fact that our K through 12 teachers are offering remote learning, and so that is what their primary focus is. So if you've got those certified teachers in those environments who we have left, and not in any terms of this is what we have left, but we do need to look at our classified and our priorities and what they're doing, and do we need to pull them, or do we need to pull them to be on site, because although in-class instruction hasn't begun, these support services have begun, and we are obligated to provide a supervisor for these students who come and take need of these services. So it is a hard reality in regards to us as a district and our community and our employees. And we talked a little bit about this concern sometimes that classified can be rated as these second-class citizens into our certified. And I think the governor shined some light on that here. You know, we try to do our best as a community to work together and say that we're one Higley and all of our employees matter, and we do that in many ways. We've done that in the past, results-based funding. We've done that in the past with increases, and so this is a difficult swallow, particularly for me as I sit here, because I know a lot of employees are saying you're making me choose my job over my safety and our health. And ideally, would it be great that we could hire a lot more individuals who are maybe less concerned and ready to come back to work? That would be great. But then financially, that goes back and puts us in another bubble that we've talked about, and I'll talk a little bit more about as we look at rescue substitutes and making sure that we have additional individuals available. So when we do return back in person, but also having additional individuals available for when something might happen to an instructor who's doing remote learning right now. So with our vendor, in terms of ESI, we are looking at their program called Rescue Subs. We started these conversations over a month ago, if not sooner. Time gets the best of me. And we talked about the fact that we need substitutes at all of our sites. There was a concern about could they fill the number that we need. We are looking at a total of 26, but our first priority is 17, looking at 1 at each elementary, 2 at the secondaries, having them work full time, and having them start on Monday the 17th. We'll make sure that we'll provide them training services for MS Teams as well as Canvas if they're not familiar with those products. But we'll also take advantage of the fact that we'll need them to help support these services. So if there's availability for that coming Monday, they'll be there to kind of help us navigate through that too. So it'll be an interesting time as we roll this out and see how that first week turns out, as Ms. Richards said, and how we've maybe done our best with the information that we have and prepared the best way we can, knowing that there's definitely going to be hiccups that we're going to learn from in the process. In regards to the Arizona Department of Health Services and the safely returning to in-person instruction, we are currently in the process of drafting information. We spent a significant amount of time yesterday working with our district nurse on all of the communication that has come through thus far, the communication that came out of the benchmark webinar that we had with ADHS last week, as well as some new information that she's learned this week and even today as she's been having these weekly webinars with ADHS. So we're in the process of drafting those items, and as Dr. Foley mentioned earlier, we identified certain things in relation to our practices on primary contact, secondary contact, and what that looks like. So as we get more of that information, we'll distribute that out prior to next week, so then site administrators have those protocols in place, and we'll go into a more detailed board meeting presentation for all of you at the 8:25 meeting. Some of the things that she has done already in preparation for our students that will be coming back is establishing new protocols for our health offices and making sure that we're ensuring the best we can the safety of our students that are going to be utilizing the services, as well as any employees in those roles and those positions, whether it's PPE, whether it's protocols in terms of how many people can be in the office at once. If somebody does identify and end up being sick, the phone call to the office, getting them prepped and ready, and identifying where they're going to be secluded within the office because it is a small space. So she's been working with them very closely and getting that put into place. And as I said earlier, more information will be given at the 8:25 board meeting as we acknowledge, and a stipulation that I'll always put out there is that it's always changing. And so we will certainly put on the bottom of the information that we give out that it's always subject to change based on the Arizona Department of Health Services. And the reality is, as I've said before, with a positive flow chart, it's going to be difficult. And this really is a practice run for us, because although we have a number of students returning to a multitude of sites, we're not going to be fully at our capacity as it would if we were in person. So these protocols, these processes in place, and what's happening is going to help us in the bigger picture as we prepare for hopefully an October return. Any additional things in terms of what we know today? I do know some of our certified teachers have reached out in relation to FFCRA and seeking additional guidance in regards to our protocols for if there is a positive case when we're back in the classroom, and that what that looks like for them in terms of their time, especially if they have to go in and out of the classroom on multiple occasions. I've yet to actually speak with my colleagues, as I just got the information earlier today from Udall Shumway in terms of guidance and what that looks like, and there's options that we have. Certainly any employees who are exposed initially has FFCRA available to them for those first 80 hours at a full paid leave. If we have individuals to where they're not sick directly, but they've been exposed, and as of right now, that exposure window is 10 days, that could be potential for self-isolation. If they're not sick and they can continue to work remotely during that self-isolation, they wouldn't necessarily need to use any additional general leave time. So those are some scenarios that we are going to work out and share at that next board meeting also, so you could see scenarios that have come in, questions that have come in, things that have actually happened and how we handled it, so that way people can really see firsthand what might apply to them when the situation does occur. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Mrs. Martins. I know that there's a special group of teachers that had some concerns by moving into support services from Kids Club. Were they given that choice to stay with the kid? Were they able to stay if they wanted to with the Kids Club kids over to the preschool? How are we navigating that little special group of teachers?
I'll defer to Ms. Richards for part of it, and then I'll finish off as I learned a number of additional information today in regards to requests from employees and leaves and so forth.
So, President Kaler, once again, with limited information, we don't know how many families are going to take advantage of that all-day Kids Club option versus before and after this targeted support services. So we do have a couple of paraprofessionals that are staying with the Kids Club employees at Sossaman, but then we also have our program leaders that have offered to help during targeted support services, which is above and beyond, because they'll help from 12 until 2:45. So to answer your question, if I knew how many kids needed the full day Kids Club, it would help. So they register by 8 p.m. on Thursday. We're getting this other registration by noon tomorrow. And we've told all our administrators, we gave you a list of people, but we may have to give and take. And you know, Ms. Gleason's been great about the whole thing, and those teachers and those paraprofessionals, I feel like I need to take them cupcakes or something because they're the ones that have been out
I'll
there.
buy. Because I've heard from their little sweethearts, and I
Yeah.
get that, you know, we would love to open just our preschools
Yes.
and let them, but we can't, and it's been so hard on my heart, to be
Yeah.
very honest. And so I just want to give a shout out right now to that group of people that are really going the extra mile for us, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everybody that's coming on Monday, because I know
Yeah.
nothing is ideal.
So they've been in the trenches loving on those kids, and, you know, they've been great about, we'll go where you need us, and I wish the circumstances weren't like this, but
I was just
I guess-
thinking about the relationships that they've already made with
Right.
some kiddos too, which they've already had these connections, and I would hate to kind of yank those away from them as well if there's an opportunity for them to still connect with those students. So,
we'll keep
Okay.
looking at it. It's fluid.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
You know, as I said earlier, President Kaler, members of the board, it is a challenge. You know, we have similar to an unfunded mandate here where we have to provide support services for, the last time I heard, numbers of up to 1,000 students who plan on returning to our 13 sites next week. So that's difficult. And again, we're not at a financial position to hire 100 new individuals to help us support these services and continue to maintain payment for our current individuals and or payment in regards to some other components in leave. Many of you know with the FFCRA, there are 6 different options employees can choose. And I've said to you many times before, this is the first federal act that employers have received where this is kept you in a paid status. All other federal act leaves have always been unpaid, with the employer allowing the ability for the employee to stay in a paid status. So we have those financial challenges. In terms of an update for our district, we did get about 30 new requests for FFCRA, especially with the requirement that we need everybody hands on deck next week. We're going to work with those individuals because they do have the right to apply, and if they need an accommodation or if they fall within those areas. We completely respect and will honor that and work with them the best we can. For those individuals where they don't fall under FFCRA or don't have an accommodation that's where, as you said, Ms. Kalar and Ms. Richards has mentioned and others have mentioned tonight, our hearts are torn. We understand their concern and where their pressure lies in terms of their own personal opinions. But as Ms. Reese, you've mentioned before, we're also an employer. So at some point, people have to make decisions. And I know they're not easy decisions, but we have to decipher what can we do. And as I said, financially, these rescue subs we're looking at to help support the district that we know will need for the next year is approximately a $500,000 cost that we have not anticipated. We've already spent almost $200,000 in various PPE that we did not anticipate. We expect and anticipate there's other equipment needs that we're going to have. We're paying for these required leaves under FFCRA for individuals because that's what the Leave Act says. However, we have to backfill their positions because we need the staff to be able to man all the different requirements that we have. So as an employer, we are in very challenging times, and you know, I'm appreciative of our federal government as well as our state government and understanding the uniqueness of school districts and schools, and the ability to have an executive order that allows us to keep individuals in paid statuses that is unique like no other. However, you know, again, this executive order also puts on us other components that in my opinion, and maybe I shouldn't go there, but I'm gonna go there. You know, the governor really skimmed through in his actual press conference and left it for us to identify and work through after. You know, so people didn't necessarily know or hear the details of that executive order and understood what that really meant. So, again, challenges that we're doing our best, and as you said, Mr. Witovich did well. We're making the best decisions we have with the information that we have in the moment, and sometimes that information changes, so the decision that was best a week ago isn't the decision that's best 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, Mrs. Martins. Any other comment, question? Thank you.
President Kaler, members of the board, the next portion would just be a review of what we had on Saturday. There's really no new information that we have since then, since the Arizona Department of Health Services is going to update their dashboard every Thursday. So the information we have is also 12 days in the rears, and so when they update it tomorrow, it'll look at 12 days in the rears that we're looking at the information. But the good news is go to the next slide, please. Is that at this time, we have met one of the benchmarks, and that is the first benchmark, a decline in cases, or less than 100 cases per 100,000 individuals for 2 consecutive weeks. And so it's not the less of 100 cases per 100,000, but declining cases for 2 consecutive weeks. You can see the top graph there, the bar graph, shows a decline for 2 consecutive weeks. The other 2 benchmarks that we have not met is 2 consecutive weeks with a percent positivity of 7%. Right now, 2 weeks in the rears, we were 13.2. We imagine that's going to go down a little bit tomorrow, but we still don't believe it's going to be in the green tomorrow. The next one, and the third benchmark, is 2 consecutive weeks with hospital visits for COVID-like illness in the region of 10% or below. So last week, we met it for 1 week, which was 8.8%, and hopefully tomorrow they'll give us the good news. It'll still continue being below 10%. So with that information, we did have a webinar today with the Maricopa County Department of Public Health, and they're putting out more regional and more localized information. So hopefully the dashboard for the Maricopa County Department of Public Health will be set up quickly. I was very excited when I saw it on the webinar today. I actually ran to Dr. Foley's office and said, take a look at this. So it was an example of what they're going to put together. It's not put together yet, but it will break it down by zip code and even school districts. If you're a high school district, they can break it down by that, an elementary district, and then for the Higley Unified School District, they should be able to break it down by those metrics. And so we're real excited about that information coming, and we will continue to update the board and the public every time we have a meeting, just to let you know where we're at and what we're looking at. And so we can take a look at this, and it looks like I believe tomorrow we'll get the metrics saying that we've met 2, and then so we're just looking at that the second 2 consecutive weeks with a percent of positivity below 7%, so we can get all of our kids and teachers back to where we want everyone to be. We know that we want to be here.
Dr. Thomason, thank you. I did see that for Maricopa, and I think it's by Friday is their hope, but we'll see if they can make it by Friday for those numbers. And I just want to reiterate again that it is the hope and goal of this entire board to get our kids back in school as soon as we possibly can, safely, and with our staff in mind as well. I know that there's been a lot of communication, emails, whatnot, and one of the things I want to focus on is that yes, our teachers, it was a 91% that they want to return to school, but it was with the caveat when it's safe, and they are looking at these benchmarks and they are following this data very, very carefully. So I appreciate that we can get our zip codes though, and I'm sure that that's going to be more defined data for all of us to chew on. And again, our board is willing. If we see something, we will put an emergency meeting on the books. We only need 24 hours to do that, and we will do everything in our power to get these kids back in school safe and sound. And that is the goal of this entire board. And I just want to reiterate that to our entire community. And again, I'm thankful for the teachers doing phenomenal work. I'm thankful for the families, the mamas, the dads, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, all hands on deck, like Mrs. Martin says, to help school these kids. Our support services starting Monday and trying to help those. I always call them the little least of these that just need a little extra support. And I'm grateful.
President Kaler. I'm too glad to hear that they're going to zip codes. That was kind of my plea, was I don't think we have the same positivity rate based on the research I did and the numbers I was gathering, that we don't have the same positivity rates in our area as they do on the west side, as they do on maybe in a downtown area, that our positivity rates are lower. So I'm excited to hear that they heard us. What they had initially said was that school boards and school districts had asked to be the ones to be able to make the decision, and that they were going to provide us this data, but it wanted to be at a local level, but you weren't going to provide us local information. So I'm very excited to see what they come out with, and like President Kaler said, all our board members have committed to these numbers. We get clear on our numbers that we've committed to having an emergency board meeting, because we did recognize that these come out on Thursdays and our board meetings are Wednesdays, and we don't have board meetings every week when these will come out every week. So it's kind of all hands on deck here too, that as soon as that we can meet the metrics that have been set, we will be willing to come together to make decisions on that. So I'm excited because that, like I said, I use their same metrics, their same information, their same numbers in our local area, and it had a very different picture for us. So that was one of the deciding factors for me, is I don't think we're in the same place as some of the other areas within Maricopa County. So I will be watching for that and looking for that. And thank you for being on webinars, I don't know that everyone realizes that there are a ton of these between Arizona Health Department, between Maricopa County Health Department, and sometimes they're conflicting information even, and so it's really difficult to kind of sort through. So while our kiddos are having to learn through screens right now, you're spending a lot of time on screens in webinars. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing that information.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Appreciate the update. Future agenda items, as you can see, our calendar is very full through the end of the year. Is there anything somebody would like to, Mrs. Wilson?
For our next update, can we have a mental health update on how our kids are doing? I don't even know how you guys would provide that, but I'm hearing it through public comment. I'm hearing it in my email. It's a struggle. Maybe we could see what we're doing as a district, because I'm not quite sure. My kids are a little older, so I'm not right there on the screen with them. Just what we're doing to help the mental health of our children. If I could see that, that would be great. And then just, can I give some direction right now from the public comment? Is that okay to do right now? Can we review the parent who said that their child's only in school for an hour, and just make sure that that they're only getting an hour in high school, just to make sure that that kiddo is on the screen when they need to, and how to figure that out? That would be great. Thank you.
Witovich.
Yes, hi. I'd just like to tag along on what Mrs. Wilson said earlier in reference to the mental health. I would like us to see, not right now, but sometime in the future, that we set up some type of program, act of kindness, okay? As I said earlier, we all need to show respect and kindness towards each other, as this cruelty will nothing but destroy this community. And for you that are watching on television right now, when we were beginning our meeting, and as we were reading some things in the meeting, there was an adult male and a young male individual yelling through the door, okay? I don't know about you, but adults are in here conducting a professional meeting, and as far as I'm concerned, that behavior is not acceptable, and that's not okay with me, that type of behavior is acceptable within some individuals. So I think I know teachers, we have more on our plate, but if some other people aren't doing something like that, I think we need, for our community to move forward for mental health and those type of things, some type of kindness program. So if we can do something with us and with the chamber together, I think as we move forward this coming semester, that we take a look at bringing this community back together, because it's been not a good experience for all of us. And I think we need to come back together here somehow. And if we can figure something out, be it whatever.
I think we're going to have to look around online and see what's
Yeah,
out there.
See what's out there. Let's
kindness.
because there's just too much going on right now. The other thing, as we go through this, I'm really concerned for the health and just the mental health of our administration and our frontline staff right now. I'll just try to be politically correct, that I find in our community and our society nowadays, they're quite intense and demanding, and I really have a concern for the people that are answering our phones at our schools, the principals that are dealing with some intense conversations all day long, that there's other things they need to address. Where I'm going at with this conversation is that perhaps maybe with the CARE Act money, as we come back or do whatever we're doing here, that perhaps we set something up as some type of triage. That could be a general phone number. When you're calling to Higley, you go to, I'm just, as an idea, I'm just throwing something out to you. As they come in, call into Higley, that there are trained people that can answer a variety of questions, that are trained for different type of environments and answering questions that may be intense. I'm trying to figure out how to say the correct words here. But just let's put some thought to that, because, you know, these principals and these frontline people that are answering the phones right now, I just feel so sorry for them because there's some really demanding phone calls they're getting. And I don't want to wear these people out. And physically and emotionally, these principals can only take so much on these phone calls, okay? And so if we can maybe think of something to lighten that load on phone calls for them with a triage or something, let's take a look at it, because I'm just kind of concerned about them on that, their safety. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Witovich.
President
Mrs.
Kaler.
Reese.
Ms. Martins, do we have anything through our insurance company for an employee assistance program?
Vice President Reese, absolutely. The whole time that I've been here at the district, and certainly prior to my tenure, we have the Employee Assistance Program. And so it's free to all of our employees, and they can get up to 5 different sessions depending on their need. They get 3 phone calls. Sometimes if an individual needs some counseling, whether it's mental health, whether that's something else, they can get up to 5 free items or sessions, and then get forwarded to a local provider that's covered underneath the medical benefits that we have. And we've actually been touting it. I'll be transparent and say we touted it more in the spring, and recently we haven't touted it as much. So I'll make sure, working with our benefits department, that we're doing that. Our marketing department, starting today, is doing a social media pitch, just like we did last year with Wellness Wednesdays. So that started today too, and we'll continue to make sure that we're keeping that at the forefront, because we do, Mr. Witovich and Ms. Reese, things get busy and things get crazy, and sometimes we neglect the things that we need to care for most.
And thank you for that, because I thought we did have that program through our insurance, and please, if we can share that out to all of our staff, our teachers. We're not in an ideal situation, and while even between the 5 of us, we have opposing views, and we can respectfully agree to disagree in views, but one thing that just the entire COVID situation has done has made everything emotionally charged. We're very protective of our kids. Our parents are crying every day when they're seeing their kids crying every day. It has just, I can't say what I would like to say. It has made a mess of a lot of people's lives, and sometimes we just don't have control of our own life, and we feel everything has been taken out of control. So even for our teachers, I'm concerned I know we have several that come into our building and teach from their classroom, but we have several at home, and just the same as the kids that we talk about at risk, that we kind of feel we need to have our eyes on because we are kind of their caretakers in that aspect. I am concerned about some at-risk employees that are working remotely who are afraid, who have not gone out and interacted with people, that I think we need to remind everybody that we do have the Employee Assistance Program, and it might be a good opportunity to take advantage of. And like Mr. Witovich said, our social media, our emails, they're not easy to read on either side. Bottom line is we're still human beings. While we've been elected and proudly serve our district, we have our teachers who do work really hard. And bottom line is we're still human beings, and we're also going through this COVID stuff in our own way. And so if we can really get that out there, maybe look at a different Wellness Wednesday for our staff versus what goes out to our community. They're set with a different set of circumstances. I know I'm not trying to put any more on your plate, because I know too, you guys are just overwhelmed, and sometimes we just need a break from it. So, but just some thoughts that if we have the opportunity that we can do, I think that would be important.
Just to go along with that whole conversation, in reference, our counselors at our high schools do a wonderful job. They have a lot on their plate. But as we come back to school, there's going to be even more on their plate, with all the things that, like Mrs. Reese said, and maybe we might look at maybe some additional triage that can help out our counselors to, so they're not going to be swamped with phone calls and things like that. So just a suggestion.
Yes, we need to care for the mental health of all in our district right now, and I know a lot of the kiddos are struggling with that. And so I do believe we have some SEL going on in our daily not daily, but weekly curriculums. And so that'll be good to share with our community what we're doing. I would love to hear that as well. Any other things? All right. Next is, I move that the governing board convene an executive session for discussion or consultation for legal advice with the governing board's attorney pursuant to ARS 38-43103A3 and A4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0, and we should return in a little bit. Thank you. And we'll take a break. Yes, please, Mr. Wotovich. I move that we can reconvene in general session.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. I move that we adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Good night.